Hi, welcome, welcome in, welcome back to Cardinal Rose Tarot. Thank you for being here. Oops, it's a little bit not how I want it. That should be okay though, I guess, right there. So yeah, hi, welcome back to Cardinal Rose Tarot. My name is Cynthia. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start off differently today than to go right into the content I'm wanting to explore about Dr. John. I'm going to pull cards first, but I'm going to be pulling cards about this. It's not a general layout. I'm not going to do like a combo type reading today for this live stream. I'm actually going to do cards simultaneous to what I'm talking about these points I want to make about Dr. John and Lauren, and emphasize why, from my perspective as a clinical social worker and someone who researches power, it's something that interests me. One of the theories that I explored pretty in depth and that I still kind of practice social work from is conflict theory, and it's a way of looking at human behavior. And this theory explores human behavior in how they deal with conflict, basically. Conflicts that they're faced with in life, conflicts in their family, conflicts in their workplace. That's one framework or system of exploring human behavior, is conflict, how they respond to conflict. Okay, so this is a little bit conflict theory related, I would say, from a social work perspective. And partly why I'm motivated to explore this and keep exploring the whole situation as it relates to Dr. John and Lauren and power, because that's the whole problem with what they did, right, is that it was a pretty serious power abuse. And now, hopefully, I sat down to do this and it started raining, and I have a metal roof, so hopefully the rain doesn't get too loud. It can get really loud, though, and it's annoying to have to kind of shout over it, but, you know, we'll just see how it goes. So I'm going to pull a couple cards here first. Tarot, just because tarot's my first love. I use oracle cards too, but I also love tarot. So in terms of power and control, and what are these power abusers doing, and what do we need to understand about it? I just want to pull some cards here to set the theme for us, to set a tone for the points I want to make from my discipline too, as a social worker. I'm also going to pull a plant card because I've been really enjoying that with these explorations I'm doing in this other area of my channel. So we have the Six of Cups in the center, the Two of Pentacles in the reverse, and the Knight of Cups in the reverse. And again, I'm pulling these cards and asking about the John and Lauren MATTHIAS situation. So the Six of Cups here at the center says to me that this is a partnership, that they see it's a partnership of sort of love and purity, both of them do. And they see their work as being like meant for one another. Like they may view each other as soulmates, okay, or did at one time. I don't know the current state of their relationship. I would not be surprised if it were under a lot of pressure and that they're possibly even exploring the future of their relationship. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but the amount of pressure they've been under and public scrutiny, I would be shocked if that wasn't something that was happening. But the center of this says to me that they feel like they're a fated or a destined pair, or like they're soulmates, right? It doesn't have to go that deep into like fate and destiny, but they feel a kinship or an alignment. And they've said as much in their own background, right? That they feel like have this beautiful love story that's like a fated love or a soulmate kind of love. In fact, Lauren even said that in her long interview on John DeLynne's channel, Mormon Stories podcast. She said that she feels like John is her soulmate. So the other two cards that we have here are the Two of Pentacles in reverse and the Knight of Cups in the reverse. And the way that I take that to mean relative to Dr. John and Lauren's situation here that I'm exploring is that they had a choice to make about their material reality, their channel, how they want to show up in the world bodily from their own work, right, as journalists and psychologist or mental health professional. They had a choice to make, especially once this whole situation started unfolding. Here it's saying the Two of Pentacles in the reverse. They made a choice that ended up harming their situation, clearly, right? It's disappointing in some ways to see that their channel still has so much traction, but that's the way the world is, right? Sometimes you expose. R. Kelly's a great example. Information came out about R. Kelly a long, long time ago, but the world loved R. Kelly, so they didn't want to hear it. So they just ignored it, and that family had to go on to try to put the pieces back together. And that child that was abused by him, after the world lashed out against them instead of R. Kelly, right? So they had a situation of starting to be, like this whole situation, we got to get ahead of it and whatever, and they made a bad choice for themselves. I'm not saying, clearly they made a bad choice for everybody else involved, but for themselves, they made a bad decision as well. And it's hurting their brand now as a result. And then the other card out of this 3-card pull is the Knight of Cups in the reverse. And I take this to mean that they, out of love and loyalty to one another, they decided we're going to block out and set boundaries. We're going to block out all the noise. We're going to double down on our position. We're not going to take accountability. We're not going to make any kind of apology. We're not going to acknowledge any kind of wrongdoing. And in fact, we're going to double down and insist that our position is correct. This is the way that story is coming out in tarot relative to Dr. John and Lauren, okay? I'm going to pull a few more cards here about that too, just to get some confirmation about it. What else, Spirit, about the situation with John and Lauren and their power abuse, right? What else do we need to understand that? It would be like him, if he, let's say, why would he be doing this and risking his reputation academically and in his profession and everything? Because it's in real damage, I guarantee you. Even if it doesn't seem like it on YouTube, in the academic world, his reputation's been very damaged by this, I'm sure. I don't circulate in a lot of academic circles. But to be an academic on YouTube is already a little bit of a stretch, because some people see YouTube as like just a cesspool of conspiracy and nothing good, right? So, he already was making a stretch professionally to decide, yeah, okay, let's go for it. And I'm sure professionally his reputation is hurting in the academic world. But the point I was making is that the Knight of Cups in reverse here, he did that out of love for Lauren, is what this is saying. That he's like, well, I want to be the rescuer and the knight in shining armor for Lauren. So I'm going to come to her defense, come to her rescue. We're going to do this. We respond. We're going to stick together. We're going to create an appearance of we're still a loving couple, right? That's what he decided at the expense of Christina, at the expense of his reputation, right? At the expense of a lot of things, okay? So I just now going to pull some more clarifiers here about that. Anything else that some other decks might want to add to that story? What else is important to know about it that can complement some of the work I'm going to be talking about here in a second from social work and from conflict theory? A dark priest. So that's interesting, because to me that speaks about Chad Daybell, right? This is how this whole thing started, was his intrigue with Chad Daybell and Lori Daybell. Struck me particularly as he was more interested in Chad than Lori, but it became a story about Lori a lot too, sometimes overshadowing Chad in a little bit, in my opinion, because I followed that case from the beginning pretty much. So a dark priest in the reverse, right? Chad Daybell, straight up, trying to assume all this power, trying to create a culture around him that became a cult, essentially a small cult, but a cult. Now we're wondering if there's something bigger that he was tapped into that connects to the Epstein files. Okay, I'm going to say it. It all connects, I think, to some degree. Who knows how much, but that's what's all coming out, right? What else? Yeah, bad legal dealings, illegal shit. Crimes of red rum, right? Crimes of abuse. And then he did what, in my opinion, is not necessarily, I don't think what he did is illegal, but he's abusing the legal system. Okay, this is why Courthouse would come out in the reverse, because he and Lauren decided to abuse the legal system to protect their reputations. Expectation, waiting. So this card often means, you know, disappointed expectations, waiting for things to come out or to be figured out or whatever. To me, this could represent something like what Christina had to go through. She knew eventually this would come out. It's what is the impression I have. I don't know her. I never talked to her in person. I don't know anybody in this equation, okay? I have no connection to anyone involved in this whole thing. I just happen to follow true crime. So this could have been something like Christina's position where she had to wait a long time for this stuff to come out while they were smearing her reputation, okay? And trying to convince people that she was a stalker. They started spinning a narrative about her, that she was a stan, okay? That she was like an obsessed fan of Lauren. And then they also started a narrative that she was stalking Lauren, doing illegal things, stalking her, threatening Lauren's safety. You know, and they started making all kinds of claims from his degree in the stalking injunction that Lauren filed against Christina, okay? So Christina had to be patient. She had to, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. It must have been awful, you know, to be having this entire crew of people watching this live 9-hour saga unfold of Lauren's fake tears. And Christina had to just endure that. That would be really stressful, right? She's a mom of 4 small children and so on. She had to wait and be patient and be strategic about how she wanted to try to get her side of the story out, because there was a case involved, right? She was being charged with a felony, okay, is what they were seeking, for her to be charged with a felony. She never did get charged, but that's what they wanted. Yeah, he's a nice guy in the reverse, okay? Dr. John is not a nice guy. If he's going to do shit like that to protect his wife instead of the person who was being falsely accused in the situation, he's not a nice fucking guy. He's maybe has the credentials and the degree of a criminal psychologist, but if he's like, fuck everything else, I'm just going to be worried about I'm worried all our hard work is going to go down the drain in an instant. That was a quote of his, right? So he doesn't care about what this could do to Christina's family, what it could do to the crime victim's family, okay? He didn't care. His main focus was their work, his reputation, Lauren's reputation, okay? Sick those cops after them. Find the evidence, make a case. We're going to have to shut Christina up so none of this comes out. That was their whole agenda, okay? I'm going to pull a couple more cards about that. And then I'm going to make my arguments about why it's so dangerous, because it weaponized the law. That's dangerous, right? But I'm going to make another example beyond Christina. Christina's is a great example. It's why everybody lost their shit over it. It's why it still has traction today, is because it's a horrible example of the abuse of their platform to hurt her, okay, and her family. It's a horrible abuse of power. So I'm going to draw a comparison to another example of that, okay, to just give us some context about why something like that is so dangerous, because that would have affected Christina and her family. Why should the rest of us be that worried about it, other than, you know, it gets a lot of traction because it's an interesting and juicy story full of a lot of drama and players. So I think that's partly why people keep tuning in. Not so much because they're like, my God, I'm dead fucking concerned about how Christina's rights were violated. I think that's true for a lot of people, for sure, or else it wouldn't have been covered to begin with. But I also think it gets lost. I think some of that gets lost in all of the drama that gets, and stuff that gets created around it, because it's highly dramatic, right? It's very gossip worthy as a story. So that's why it keeps having all this traction, because people are intrigued and want to follow the gossip story, right? So this is where I'm going to make, this is from Loteria, from the Loteria deck, okay? And this is where I'm going to make my argument now about why their conduct is so dangerous, because we've got a boot here, which we're talking about. For me, as the reader of this deck, the way that I use this in tarot is combat boots. Okay, that's how I use it. This boot symbol represents authority to me. This beautiful lady's hat represents propriety. And this indigenous person represents what I'm about to start discussing, which is that I think there's another bigger example playing out on the national stage that's a macro example of the exact process that Christina just went through, okay, and had to go to court for and defend herself for and try to get creative about how am I going to defend myself, because these people have way more power and platform than I do. They have a legal team of 4. They've already been way ahead of this, trying to frame me for this. I'm now trying to scramble to get, you know, my reputation saved because her work was being impacted, her career, her art. That's what I've heard anyways. She was losing clients because of this, okay? So I'm going to now share an example about how I think that part of why maybe somebody doesn't want to take on the topic as I'm about to is that they're worried about propriety, because this is on the macro scale and people get afraid and don't know how to talk about what's going on the macro scale. They feel more comfortable staying and orbiting a microcosm like this became or was. And that's okay. I did too. Okay, I'm not criticizing that. I orbited it and was very engrossed in it. Okay, but I'm also engrossed in other things, and that's the example that I'm going to bring in. The link to the video is in the description box of this live stream. It's I think it's from Democracy Now! It's a testimony from a woman. Her last name is Martinez. I can't remember now. I'm blanking on her first name. It might be Marisol or Maribel. Mari is in the beginning of her name. Her last name is Martinez, and she just gave testimony to Congress about her encounter with ICE. Okay, so her case is an exact macrocosm of what happened to Christina, and I'm just going to break it down. And the video, I'm going to give you the timestamps too, so that you can go in and watch her testimony, and talks about why her situation is a macrocosm of the microcosm of what Christina just went through, and why what Dr. John and Lauren did is so dangerous, okay, because it reinforces shit like this. So, on the clip of Martinez's testimony that again is linked in this description box of this live, about 9 minutes into the testimony is when she's talking about what happened, because she was shot by ICE, okay? She was notifying her neighborhood that ICE was in the neighborhood. This is a citizen, though. She's not an immigrant. She's his first generation. And she saw that ICE was in the neighborhood. They had already been wreaking holy havoc in Chicago, okay? Raiding apartment buildings, really scaring a lot of people. She's a citizen, but she has a lot of community that were not documented, right? So when she noticed that they were driving through the neighborhood, she started honking and notifying people. This is all in her testimony. And so what ended up happening is that the agent turned his car, according to her, and I believe her, into her vehicle to force her to stop. And then at some point just opened fire on her, but then accused her of ramming him. That's where the narrative and the spin starts. And this starts around 9 minutes into her testimony. So this agent, because what he did was, there was no reason for any of what he was doing that he could defend legally. What he was doing, he could have like peaceably arrested her, possibly, although that's even questionable. But what he did was none of that, right? He carried out violence against her. He rammed his car into her, according to her testimony. She ended up being shot 5 times by ICE. She's lucky to be alive, okay? This all unfolded in a really crazy, highly escalated way. And 9 minutes into her video, she starts talking about the spin, as they're telling her story, that she rammed him, okay, so that he had to shoot her in defense, self-defense, right? When it's actually, he drove into her to stop her from moving forward because he was pissed that she was notifying people of his presence. So he went up alongside her and then drove in front of her, okay, according to her testimony. 9 minutes in, she starts talking about that. That's where the spin starts. No, she rammed me, and so I had no choice but to open fire on her. Okay, that's part of the narrative. I might have the minutes mixed up, but her whole testimony is linked in my community tab, and also not just in the description box here, but in my community tab. Then at 10 minutes in, it starts talking about not only was she shot 5 times, but now she's being charged with a domestic terrorism, okay? And from her behavior, from her acts, they charged her with domestic terrorism. And so her testimony says, this is how I'm being painted. You know, on Friday, the day before this happened, I was at a Montessori school teaching my students, right? Like living, before all this happened, I was proud of my government. I was proud and a supporter of law enforcement. I wasn't somebody that was anti-police, not anything. I was a very proud American. Right now I'm all shaken up and I'm really terrified and can't believe that this could have been done to me, right? So I'm not going to speak for her. Her testimony's on, I've linked it here in 2 different places. So now she, you know, so she gets out of the hospital. Or maybe not, maybe she was still in the hospital. And she's seeing that on the news, she's now being classed as a domestic terrorist, okay? But she's a Montessori school teacher, okay? But can you imagine how terrifying that must be for her? She's a Montessori school teacher, so I believe that she's innocent, but if you don't, let's speculate that she is for a minute. A Montessori school teacher being charged with domestic terrorism from the federal government, where are you going to have the legal resources to fight back? Where is that going to come from? Where are you going to come up with the money to legally defend yourself? Because the federal government has decided to cast you as a domestic terrorist, okay? Just suspend that if you've already convicted her in your mind, just suspend that for a second and do a thought experiment with me and imagine hypothetically, let's say she is innocent and her story's totally true. The crime that she committed was a traffic violation, okay, potentially, if even that, right? She's saying I wasn't even at fault for the traffic violation. He drove into me, okay, but how did a traffic violation go from a traffic violation to now she's justifiably shot 5 times by the federal government, okay? Think about Ruby Ridge, think about Waco if you have to, okay? If you can't find it in your heart to open your mind to that what she's saying might be true, think about those examples from the federal government, okay? That's what she's up against now. She's being painted as a domestic terrorist all over the media. She's a Montessori school teacher. She has to try to keep teaching even though she's been shot 5 times, because she's like, well, now what the fuck, right? I'm going to have to come up with a defense, all of that, okay? This is where it starts. Now ICE is trying to paint anybody that goes through something like this as a liar, right? They drove into me. I had no choice but to open fire. What happened in the other cases, not just in her case, is that a lot of the community's cell phone footage and whatever is showing contradictions to what ICE is saying. So now we've got the federal government making up lies in order to justify their conduct. I had no choice but to shoot her because she was ramming me and trying to run me over. I'm justified in unloading on her 5 shots, this Montessori school teacher, citizen, okay? So she has to try to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to defend myself? Because now they're lying about me. Now they're creating this whole narrative about me, just like Christina had to. Christina had no way to defend herself. She had to get creative. So she got creative and found a way to find her own footage, just like we're doing as citizens and free people in a free nation are to do, to record ICE, to document what they're doing, to raise hell if we don't like it. As free citizens of this government, we're allowed to fight back against the federal government by filming them, by saying we don't like what they're doing, by ridiculing them, okay? That's our freedom here, okay, to do so. And Christina had to get creative and figure out, okay, they're painting me with this really intense brushstroke. They've got 4 attorneys doing it. Dr. John's using his credentials, aka ICE is using the power of the government and the credentials that Donald Trump has given them and endorsed and posted images of apes of Barack Obama. And really, that's what you're going to do because you're afraid about the heat that you're taking for what you did? So now let's do a racist dog whistle distraction and post. The Obamas, when was the last time they had any power? It's been a while, right? But now let's do this. Let's get everybody looking over here and laughing at this. Don't pay attention to what ICE is doing. Laugh at this racist meme. Okay, this is their fucking playbook. And Christina had to defend herself against something very similar. People with power, people with credentials, people with a major platform started coming at her, smearing her reputation, going on a diatribe of 9 hours to paint her as this insane stalker stan. Now she has to get creative and think, maybe if I get some glasses, because I know they're setting me up, right? That's what Christina had to do. Then it goes, this is the last comparison that I'm going to make. And it's the narrative at 10 minutes 15 in, when Ms. Martinez had to go to court to defend herself against domestic terrorism charges, okay? When she walked into the courtroom, she saw it full of her parents, her students, her community members, her loved ones, allies, people that knew that she wasn't doing what she was being accused of and what she was being slandered with and what her reputation was being smeared with. Just like Christina had happened for her. When everybody knew that she hadn't done anything wrong, when everybody knew she needed backup because she was fighting this insane attack on her reputation by herself, people rallied to her side. They went to court on her behalf. They supported her. The judge saw clearly. Christina was not charged, right? Or Lauren was forced to drop the charges, right? Because the judge was seeing clearly that this was a made up thing in order to shut Christina up. And he even said very specifically, this is not going to make her stop doing TikToks, okay, right? The judge upheld her right to keep doing what she was doing, which was try to get her side of the story out. And the judge protected her because there are laws to protect our speech and our rights bodily, right? So the judge in this woman's case now saw this is not a domestic terrorist. The evidence does not match what ICE is accusing her of. She's not a domestic terrorist. She's a Montessori school teacher. They threw out all the charges. No crime has been committed. She has been found innocent because the charges against her, all charges have been dismissed. Thank fucking God for that woman and her family and her community, right? Just like thank fucking God for Christina and her friends and her kids and her community. So that's my example. That's why what John and Lauren are doing is dangerous. It's a micro version of what the federal government is doing. When you have power and position in society, especially if you're white, people listen to you. John and Lauren banked on that. I don't give a shit whether Christina's white or not. I know that a lot of the conservative community rallying around her, that's why they don't want to support any of what I'm doing, because they don't like that I'm far left. Even though they agree with everything I'm saying, I guarantee you, if they would just stop looking at Ms. Ramirez's race for a second, that she's from an immigrant family that with brown skin, okay? That's the difference, dude. It's the exact same fucking abuse of power that was carried out in Waco, that was carried out in Ruby Ridge, that was carried out against this woman, and then they tried to smear her. It's the same bullshit that they did in COINTELPRO, okay? It's all the same. And I'm making that argument as a clinical social worker and an anti-fascist. So if you're really fascinated about everything that happened to Christina, try to get fascinated about everything that's happening in addition on a federal level. It's hard, I know. It's overwhelming. It's hard to be fascinated with it because it's terrifying. I get it. Nobody wants to watch. Nobody wants to look because nobody knows what to do. I don't know what to do. So this is what I'm doing. I'm doing what I can with the world that I live in, with the resources that I have, with the knowledge that I have, with the voice that I have. I don't go bodily in the streets as much anymore because I'm getting older and I have PTSD. So I'm not as dangerous in the street, right? I can't stay focused. I can't stay woke in the street. Yeah, woke, okay? As someone who realizes that these are things that we should all be uniting against, not fighting amongst ourselves about, straight up. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm going to do a general layout now about in case anything else wants to come out. And then that'll do it for this live stream. What is something? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to do. I don't know if I'm going to do a whole layout because I was going to pull a card. I had decided and I forgot about that. What's a message from the plant kingdom relative to these stories and this message that I wanted to live stream from my discipline as a social worker. What do we need to know, Spirit? From Mother Nature, from the plant kingdom. What are some messages? Well, that one wanted to come out too, so I'm going to pull both. We've got rosemary in the upright and thistle. Well, these don't go in reversals and uprights. I read them no matter what. Thistle and rosemary. Thistle is extremely protective. And in fact, if you like my work, please like and subscribe. And then I've done... you can scroll back into the Obsidian Mirror podcast. I did a thistle and cauldron scrying session that was really, really cool, and I recommend going and checking it out. Thistle's a very witchy, protective plant, and it's one that you can use in divination and to protect yourself. So this is things like protecting our home and our neighborhoods from this type of intense invasion of the federal government, right? Like you can use things like thistle and cloves, and maybe that sounds dorky to people, but I believe in that as a spiritual practitioner, like lighting candles for our safety and stuff. So let's see what this has to say. Thistle, it's card 45. These are messages from the plant kingdom about this reading. Sword of Courage. Thistle is a loving warning, a kind-hearted messenger armed with swords. Do not be afraid of this rough, do not be afraid of this rough, spiky plant. They are an ally, come to alert you that there is a message that you must attend to. Thistle is here to tell you to be courageous, to be afraid, and to know that the two go hand in hand. I love it. When we seek to avoid fear, to banish it from our lives, we drive it deeper into ourselves. When we can be brave enough to acknowledge our fears, to cohabitate with them while not allowing them to govern our lives, then we are truly courageous. Thistle invites you to stand in your feelings and own them like the blast of color Thistle shares with the world. This is me. Thistle is our friend when we have to cope, when crisis is a regular event in our lives, when we have shock wired into us from frightening or harmful events that live with our knives and prickers always out. Sorry, I need to read that again. Thistle is our friend when we have to cope, when crisis is a regular event in our lives, when we have shock wired into us from frightening or harmful events and live with our knives and prickers always out. Sometimes this harm is directed at you or someone you love, and sometimes it's simply something that you are aware of, have witnessed, or felt around you. Who hasn't in the US right now? You're lying if you say you haven't noticed it. It's whether you've decided to pay attention at this point or not. We are often carrying the feelings and experiences of others without even knowing it. Thistle is here to stand guard while you learn to gracefully put down what is not yours to carry. Bristling with a cautionary energy, Thistle is also a plant with the brightest, most exuberant and delicate flowers. Follow Thistle's example. Let your courage blaze out in glorious color and know that you have protection for all that you fear. I love it. Thank you, Spirit. That helps me feel better because when I talk at this level, especially on this channel, which isn't really what I set out for this channel to be about, I feel really tense and worried a lot. So that helped me too. And then Rosemary, card number 13. The holder of belonging. Rosemary is the deep, unconditional, I will cross space and time for you kind of love. Rosemary has a long history of being planted in front of the house to act as a guardian and protector for the household and to balance the family's presence within. A guardian protector of the household. Beautiful. If you are feeling not completely present in your life or your body, if you dissociate, feel forgetful, absent, or are struggling to keep up, bring rosemary into your family. Aromatic rosemary is awakening, stimulating, grounding, and can bring these qualities into your days with strength. Often feelings of being not fully incarnated or in your body and soul linger from a time early in our lives when we may have needed to split from our full selves and live only in parts of ourselves. There are many different reasons children feel the need to protect themselves, sometimes simply from instability or the unknown, other times from direct threat and assault, like what happened in Chicago. No matter the cause of this fracturing of self, it can leave parts of ourselves out of the conversation with each other. Rosemary helps to build the walls of our personal fortresses and our sense of home and belonging into the very core of our being. The essence of rosemary is the deep satisfaction of creating something yourself, something that is lasting and meaningful. The sense of home that rosemary can bring is the harbinger for all of us that we can build whatever we need to house our desires, our longings, our sense of place. Rosemary is at the door, waiting to sit down at the table with you and celebrate. Really beautiful. Thank you, Spirit. That's really cool. Very awesome. I'd love to know how you use use rosemary if you use it. I use it a lot, and we have it growing here. And I plan to always grow it wherever I live as long as I'm able, because I believe in its healing properties, like it just said, right? Really great stuff. So now let's see what else wants to come out. Spirit, what wants to come out for the collective for more of a general reading, a general message, now that I got the intense LAWFARE messaging out of the way. What wants to come out? Ooh, I love it. This is really positive, exciting energy in the midst of a lot of sorrow. So we need this kind of message. I'm glad it's coming out. So we're facing a new experience. We're on a threshold and we're facing a new reality in this collective. The people that are catching this reading that it's going to resonate for, this is the energy that we're in right now at present, is this looking forward in our lives, on our path moving forward. Where are we going? We're on the way, but we're at that initial kind of spark of setting off, okay? Crossing that is a desire not to go. It's a desire to keep going within and not strike out. It's a desire to stay indoors or stay inside in the inner world. It's a desire to keep very hermit-like. A hermit is a spiritual seeker, but they're in a very solo journey going within. It could be like a dark night of the soul. And that is the more powerful pull in this collective right now, against that desire to move forward onto the next journey and onto your next chapter, right? Is those ideas feel in conflict for the collective right now. The higher realm is acknowledging that we need to have a rest. We're being witnessed here for the desire to go within and rest. It's saying that's okay. It's saying it doesn't have to be at odds with our move forward in our lives. It's saying we can have both. So if there's a deep hunger that feels overpowering of going within, it's saying that's okay. Go ahead and rest. There's reason to hope. We have reason to hope, so resting is okay. It's saying don't give up. There's reason to hope here. Go within if you need to. Because you may be being like, well, what do I do? Do I go out in the streets? What do I do? Do I go to court with my sister? What do I do? Do I go, this is for whatever it might be looking like for you with your personal situation up against a desire to be like, I don't know what to do. And I'm overwhelmed and I just want to go within. And I feel like there's too much demand on me, or I can't figure it out. And it's saying it's okay. It's okay to rest. There's reason to hope. We've been having an onslaught of bad news, and I think I called it in my community tab, the bomb cyclone of traumatic events. And I was referring specifically to what ICE is doing. They're bomb cycloning us with trauma, okay? They're traumatizing us with images, with acts. They're not just arresting immigrant people and undocumented people. They're arresting Native people, people who are indigenous to this land. They're arresting and then forcing them through this entire process. And once again, that's lawfare, okay? Because who feels brave to go up against the federal government when something like that is happening? They're doing that to scare people, okay? It's by design, in my opinion. It's a cyclone of negative events and violations of rights, so that the unspoken messages, this is what you're looking at if you cross us, okay? That's the unspoken message. If you decide to cross us, this is what you're going to get, or worse. You're going to get shot 5 times. You're going to get, okay, because that woman was just warning her community. She wasn't running from that, okay, all of that, right? We've been getting an onslaught of that, and this is saying it's okay to rest. There's reason to hope. It's okay to do what we have to. And not only is there reason to hope, but check it out. There's going to be some really exciting things happening, but also possibly some more shit coming to light. And it all makes sense, right? We're looking at the Epstein files, that it's all coming out right now. It's all being unpacked and looked at and dissected and everything. It also means very positive things on the horizon, though, especially with the star card. It's saying don't give up hope. Keep your little star of hope inside, even in the darkest. This little light of mine, okay, that's another way to look at the Hermit, is the song This Little Light of Mine, the resistance song from Jim Crow era, okay? I'm not going to let my light go out. I'm not going to let this terror put my light out, okay? I'm going to keep going, even if I need to rest. I'm going to let my light shine. For me here in this, it was to tell this truth. This is all of who I am. I'm not just a reader. I kept a lot of stuff out of this channel because I was like, this channel is for esotericism and tarot, but I also want to make it feel like a welcome place. So in the beginning, I was really clear to be anti-fascist as my vibe, right? Like, this is a place where I don't vibe with MAGA, okay? I don't vibe with transphobia, but otherwise I didn't get too into it. I just did cards, right? And storytelling. Well, now I'm taking it further because I launched into this other situation in true crime, and it's like, why isn't true crime covering this? To me, it's major. So it's the true crime pipeline. For me, I'll call it, right? I got into true crime, and then it sent me on the pipeline back to who I am, which is like, I'm going to talk about what's going on in the true crime, federal government true crime, okay? So there's more coming to light, but there's also going to be a lot of reasons for joy. We are trying to sort through what's the truth and what are the lies. That's what we're trying to sort through. They were painting this truth teller as a liar, right? The federal government was. John and Lauren MATTHIAS were painting Christina as a liar. Okay, that's what was happening. Those were the facts. They were lying about her and making her seem like the liar in both cases, okay? In Christina's, again, she's a stan, she's a stalker, she needs to be locked up. They were trying to have her jailed, and she has children, okay? They were abusing the law in order to do that, and abusing John's credentials. In this other case, they were painting this Montessori school teacher as a domestic terrorist, okay? Even though they shot her 5 times, they're now saying you're the terrorist. Just like John and Lauren MATTHIAS terrorized Christina, but said, no, you're the terrorist, okay? This is the way. This is the weaponization, okay? What's coming towards us is a lot of sorrow. And yeah, it's the bomb cyclone of trauma and sorrow and terror that we're up against as a nation right now, that we're being faced with. And we're being forced to look in the mirror. What are you made of? Where are you? Where are you going to stand up? If you're not going to stand up for Ms. Martinez and you are going to stand up for Christina, why is that? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just floating the question, okay? Because I care about Christina too. That's how I got into this whole track, right? Because I was concerned about John and Lauren's behavior. So I'm not saying caring about Christina is wrong. I'm saying pan out and see the bigger relationship. What happened to Christina with the bigger picture, okay? That's what I'm saying. So we're being inundated with shit that we can't. That's the 9-hour live, okay? The 9-hour live was an inundation so that people don't know what the truth is, right? It's smoke and mirrors. It's a 9-hour live where I'm crying and I'm pretty and I'm blonde and Grayson's filming me and she's egging me on and we're these two blonde girls that are, you know, that's where the white privilege comes in my opinion. And so that's that. And then our greatest hopes and fears are we're exhausted and we're tired of this. We're wondering, like, when is this shit gonna end? When are they gonna stop this bomb cyclone of misinformation that they're throwing out at the public, that they're loading up in the media, that they're doing all kinds of shit to just make it so we can't tell what's true, right? Where things are headed is a feeling of safety and abundance, which is very needed. It's very much in keeping with the Sun card. It's the good news that we need, and the Star card. There is good news coming, okay? That's essential to hear. I'm not just here to be, you know, doom and gloom Antifa. That's not who I am, because I'm happy. I'm happy simultaneous to all this fucked up shit going on. I'm a happy person with reasons to be happy in my life, okay? So we have a lot of reasons, and I'm going to ask what they are. If Spirit will show any more examples of, like, what could these good things be that are coming that we need? We need good news. We need good information. What might it look like? That's what I'm going to ask now. What might it look like, Spirit? These good things and good news coming for us. How could it look for some of us in this collective? What might it look like? Oops. What might it look like, Spirit? Awakening. So more and more people seeing the truth, and that is a good thing if ever there was a good thing, straight up. I 100% agree with that. That is a huge reason to celebrate. The truth coming out, people's minds blowing open as they wake up to the truth about what's going on. There's going to be really, really good things to come from that. I believe that 100%. I believe that. I haven't given up hope. I believe this 100%. Soulmates. So finding people that we vibe with on a soul level. Could be romantically, could be collaboratively, could be creatively. A time of soulmates. I could use that for sure. I've been rocking it solo for a long time. I'm ready. I have a lot of people in my life that I love, but I've been on a solo journey like the hermit for a while in my own dark night of the soul. So good news of people that we feel soul resonance with, that we connect with and vibe with on a soul level. Moving on from the trauma, the horror, the abuse, okay? And it's not moving on without reckoning, I hope. I hope there's going to be some type of reckoning or judgment day for the people that are terrorizing us like this, okay? Straight up, I'm going to say that. I'm praying for that. An ending of this, okay? Endings of the old, I guess. I don't know what that means or what that's going to look like. I'm not a guru. I'm not a prophet. I'm a person just like anyone else. Reading cards is all. An end of jealousy and envy. So maybe an end of the messaging that if you support this group, you are against this other group, right? Like there was a lot of that going around about Bad Bunny doing the Super Bowl, right? Like if you support that, somehow it means you're against white America. What the fuck? Okay, that's just fucking insane. Show me the link. Give me the Glenn Beck breakdown on the chalkboard of liking Bad Bunny and listening to Bad Bunny's music. Break it down for me that means that you're an enemy of the USA, you're an enemy of Donald Trump, you're okay? Break it down, right? It's just insane, okay? It's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous, okay? He's an artist. He had an honor of playing at the biggest sports event in US history, period. If you want to make it some weird, like, America's being destroyed because Bad Bunny is playing the Super Bowl, maybe you need to double back a ways and figure out, when did I get on that path? And do I still believe that? Does that make sense? Is Bad Bunny the one invading people's homes and shooting them in the streets? And I don't think so. And you might say, well, neither are those law channels that you're accusing. And you're right, they're not. But I think that they're part of whipping up the belief system that make it so that those people can get away with it without even, anybody batting an eye, right? They're out there to convince the public, this isn't all any big deal, just look away. Oh, isn't that funny? ICE is mooning them. See, it's no biggie. This is all just a joke. Just forget about it. This is all fake. None of it's real. Don't worry about it. Let's just keep gaming. Okay, that's that's some of the narrative that's out there, and I'll just call it like it is. So if you like my work, thank you for being here and liking and subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one. And I think that's it. Bye-bye.